Hi everybody! I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday so far. And we're using my phone again today, so if it's a little bit cranky, I apologize, but I promise the message is so worth it, so stay tuned. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And yeah, because we're always talking about really wonderful things, I think anyways, sometimes really tough, but really just about emotions and spirituality and how we can really integrate spirituality into our everyday lives. And specifically what I want to talk about this week is when we feel emotionally weak, okay? And specifically situations where we feel like we should be doing something differently and then we're not, and we feel the weakness within that. So a good example would be, you're in a relationship that isn't necessarily the healthiest, and you should leave, you want something different, but you just can't bring yourself to let go. Another one would be a job that you really don't like, but you're justifying staying in the job because whatever, X, Y, Z. And so I want to talk about these moments because I don't know about you guys, but when I know that I should be doing something differently and I stay in that situation, I feel really weak. I feel really emotionally weak. And I just feel like if I were somebody better, if I were stronger, if I were whatever, I would leave or change something up. And it's like, why am I not doing that? And so specifically talking about that weakness, I do think it has a lot to do with our intuition. And I think it's a pretty, in my opinion, it's a pretty spiritual experience. And I think a lot of us don't give credit for the fact that it is actually a really spiritual experience, because we sit in that weakness and we just judge ourselves and we can't seem to get past it or get through it. And so I just want to offer you guys maybe a different perspective of what's going on and hopefully empower you to, if you need to, make those changes, but then also to not beat yourself up about the fact that you aren't making those changes, okay? So my experience, and I'm going to talk specifically about relationships. Of course, this ties to any of the examples I previously shared. And of course, even if I didn't share an example, I'm sure you can fit it to something in your own personal life. But my experience is that our intuition is almost always bang on. Okay, how many times do you guys, your intuition say don't do something, you do it, and you're like, man, well, that was dumb. I should have listened to that in that little voice that's always right. And part of what I work a lot with clients is really empowering people to start listening to that intuition. I mean, I think oftentimes we get so bombarded with what's our intuition, what's our soul speak versus what's other people speak, what's other influences, what's just my mind recreating these things. And I think this is a perfect example, okay? So you're in a relationship, it's not going that great, and it's things like I'm going to use he just because obviously from my perspective, where it's like he does these really nice things for me, where he might, do groceries, or when we're together, it's really great. But then every single time I try to bring up a topic that maybe is true to me, like he crossed a boundary or hurt me in some way, and then I sit down and I try to talk to him about it, and he just like makes me feel like it's my fault. You know what I mean? Like he makes me feel like I'm the one who's doing something wrong, I'm being crazy, and you almost get to that space where you start to feel like you're crazy, like you're like, oh my god, I'm being that person in this relationship where I'm being irrational, I'm being crazy. But oftentimes, and I see this with friends, I've seen this with myself, 90% of the time, they're not crazy, it's just that they're starting to ignore their intuition, okay? And oftentimes people will ask me my opinion or my thoughts, and I'm like, well, you know the answer. Like, you've already said the answer. This hurt you. It violated a boundary, and your internal system is telling you this isn't okay. And then when you try to move through it, that person makes it seem like it's your fault, right? So this is where the rationalization starts to happen, is we start to put our inner voice, our opinion, our boundaries, and our thoughts second to that person, okay? So it's almost like we're giving them our power. But visually, what I think of this is if you think lean to the side, right? Like let's say you're trying to pick up a weight, like a dumbbell or whatever, and you lean to your side and you go to pick up that weight, or even from the front. It doesn't really matter what angle, but you start to pick up this weight, okay? Think about when you're really close to pick up this weight. What do? You put yourself into a proper squat to protect your back, and you lift this weight. Now, think about if you extend yourself really far, almost like leaning as far as you possibly can lean, and then you try to pick up that weight. It's suddenly like way harder because you have gravity, your muscles are already extended. Like, it's hard. And so if you think about that, when we're in connection with ourselves and we're listening to our intuition and we're connected to that inner voice, we're connected to really our own self, and we are strong within that, that's when we're our strongest, guys. And we can still have compassion, but that's our strongest. But every single time we put our intuition second and our inner voice second to somebody else's opinion and somebody else's whatever, and we rationalize that we're crazy and that they're right, we start to stretch ourselves further and further from ourselves. So if you think about it, you start leaning, literally, it's almost like you emotionally start leaning away from yourself and you start stretching yourself away. And the longer this happens, the further and further you're stretched. Like I kind of think of that movie like Elastigirl or whatever. That's literally what I think of. It's like you are super stretched as this like elasto person, and you're further and further away. Well, the further away you get, guys, the weaker you are going to be. It's just fact, and it's not a bad thing, but you are weakening yourself. And I think often what happens is the reason we do this is less because it's not necessarily because we value that person more than ourselves. What I think it is that we're so tied to we've created a story, okay? And we've created how this specific person will fit into that story. So let's say we want a really healthy marriage, we want to have kids, and when we first started dating, this person was really great, or whatever. But we basically created this story that this person is going to be my forever person. We're going to, have this great life. It's going to fit into this image that I have. And when this person is basically, you're so tied to this idea. Like I literally think of it like an anvil that you're holding on to, and you're getting stretched further and further and further and further away from your inner self while being anchored by this anvil that you're holding on to for dear life. And of course, to repeat myself here, the anvil is your idea of what you think the end result should be, okay? And should is the important thing. And I think of this, I should have a healthy relationship. I should be with this person. I should be able to walk away. I should be able to lose weight, whatever that is. We have this idea, this should of who we should be and how this situation should end up. Like a job, I should have this great job. It's like, it pays me well, it gives me free time, it does all these things, right? Like it fits into these shoulds. But our intuition keeps telling us, maybe in conflict with our rational mind, that this is not the right fit for us, And as we get further and further away, it's harder to let go because it's gonna hurt. When you, when you like basically bounce back to yourself, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna feel uncomfortable because you're so stretched out. All of a sudden you need those muscles to relax, to reconnect, and to re-strengthen, right? And so basically this process is we end up holding on for dear life with this anvil. We get super stretched, and you're right, we do get weak because we can't either let go of that anvil because we know it's going to hurt, or we can't even lift it to go back to our inner self, right? And so I think the more and more we can start realizing, guys, that if you're in a situation where you just feel uneasy and it's a regular feeling of uneasiness, something needs to change. And I'm not saying to run away from that relationship without trying, but there's a very big difference between collectively working in a partnership towards agreed upon goal versus continually being essentially neglected and your opinions belittled and put aside for somebody else's, right? If you're sitting down and you say to somebody, hey, this really actually bothered me, and they're poo-pooing you because they don't agree with it, well, that's not fair. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. That's how you feel, and there needs to be respect within that. And every single time, and I know I'm repeating, but I want to really drill this home, is like, if it's happening and it's something that's really bothering, it is not going to go away, guys. It's like, yes, you can try practices where you just let it go or, try to not stuff it, but it's not even about where that energy goes at this point. It's the fact that you are stretching further and further from your inner self. So the goal is to basically live in that space where you are more connected with yourself, and you can, essentially, I think of like my visual is if you pick up that anvil and then you're like, bent knees kind of waddling forward while carrying this anvil. And of course, that's not ideal, but at least you can do it, right? And you feel strong. You feel so strong. And so I think, get away from these ideas that I'm a weak person to do this, in the sense of like shaming yourself and beating yourself up, because it's not that you're a weak person. It's just that you're in a position that has put you into a weak position, okay? And our goal with connecting to ourselves and really embracing that spirituality is to be the most emotionally strong that we can be. Because when we're emotionally strong, guys, things are just easier, right? We have that quote unquote thicker skin, but it's not a thicker skin that keeps things out. It's just things don't bother us as much, right? And that's where control and a lot of peace actually comes from. And so with that, I leave you, and I just want to question it. What in your life is happening right now where you are really stretched from your own inner self? And regardless if you just choose to maybe let go of that anvil, maybe the solution is let go of that anvil and go through the pain of just reconnecting with yourself. Or maybe it's starting to slowly inch yourself back together, okay? But it's so important, guys, and even if it's hard, I guarantee you it's going to make your life so much more empowered, I guess. Yeah, empowered and enriched. And so, yeah, with that, again, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Facebook or Instagram under AK Mediumship. All right, have a great week, you guys.